Wait a minute. And I feel like I spend all of my time starting this from trying to fix my phone. This has been becoming a theme. Alrighty. Welcome, Raj. Welcome. Welcome, 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 welcome. I was almost not on time, but I made it. What's up? Oh my gosh. Hey, AJ. What's up? Welcome to Star People Storytime. I don't believe you know what you stepped into. Hey, Steve. So we are on chapter 33. And it's about to get real up in here. Okay, so chapter 33. And I said potentially, but I don't know if we can. What are we going to do? How is everybody? So yesterday we read chapter 31 and 32. I'm sure of this. I'm kind of sure of this. And so we found out that Kai ended up in Firewall, which is always interesting when you end up in the place formerly known as Hell. And it looks different than how it did in her Yai, which is also funny. Hey, Bernard, welcome. And then we got a glimpse of Kai's dad, her biological. We got a glimpse of what the devil, what Lucifer looks like in, I don't know, deanimation. So that was interesting, wasn't it? And Kai did kind of like there was like a dream sequence aspect where she figured out how to see the truth, IKEA Gnome. And so that's interesting. So we're going into chapter 33, which is also called IKEA Gnome. And I just want to make sure everybody's here. I don't know what time it is, but I think Hey, Yusuf. Welcome. Welcome. And for those of you who are new, Star People Storytime, we're reading a chapter or 2 or 3 from my third book this go round. Book 3, Light of the War, the Stellar Trilogy. It's backwards on here because Facebook Live is backwards. But that's what we're reading. If you want to catch up, you can go to my Facebook page, the Stellar Trilogy series, and all of the videos from when we started the 2nd of this month are up there. So we're on chapter 33, and we have about, I'm going to say we're going to have about 10 more chapters to go. Something like that. And the epilogue? Yeah, we have 10 more chapters and the epilogue to go. So rather than, be all, what is happening? I mean, you can listen. No one's telling you can't listen. I mean, I read well. So, but I'm just giving you a heads up that we're pretty far along. So I can't catch you up. You're going to have to watch all them videos. You have to, not Netflix and chill. It'll be Facebook Live and shine. Okay? And so if everybody's ready and everybody's here, we're going to start chapter 13. IKEA Gnome. I guess that would be IKEA Gnome. Life is not a problem to be solved, but a reality to be experienced. Soren Kierkegaard said that. She thought that she would have wanted to say the words instantly and get the process over with, but she didn't. Even though her fear of Lucifer as a living being had subsided, mostly because he still didn't move a muscle, there was a far more powerful fear that was lingering inside of her. A part of her was okay with not knowing Lucifer before he morphed into Lord Evil. She was used to believing him bad and horrible and bereft and all that the legends of Earth had described. That was easy for her. That's how she knew him. She could hate him, and it was uneventful to hate what everyone around her also hated, or at least feared. But sitting with the lifeless Lucifer had made the legend fall flat. She recognized that underneath the legend was really just a being that had lost his way. Plus, the path he chose had finally caught up with him. It made her recognize her own frailty and failures. Of course, she had never took her frailty and failures to the extent Lucifer had. But maybe it could have all boiled down to obscenely blind ambition. She had already been through Kuai Yin. She had already seen through Kuai Yin how hurt people, through a perception of being disconnected from everything. Maybe the same was true with what happened with Lucifer. She was curious about his process. She was curious about how he could go from being sent to save the earth to feeling so compelled to destroy it. Plus, make his own wife his nemesis. It was a good plot line if she wasn't so petrified to see it play out. She had a strange and sudden craving for popcorn with lots of salt. Baby brain caused her to look around the Lapis Tavern to see if any eaten anything would turn up for her to eat. She actually hoped specifically for a popcorn tree. Nothing turned up. Maybe it was just as well. The more discomfort she had stalling, the quicker she could get on with it and prayerfully get back to where she left her family so she could eat. She sighed exceptionally loudly. "Ikea nom," she said, practically spitting out the dastardly phrase she had been trying to avoid since she remembered what it was. When nothing at all happened, she said it again, but louder and more emphatically. "Ikea nom." Still, nothing moved. Nothing moved. Frustrated, she said it a few more times in a few different ways. She even tried saying it with a French accent until finally she screamed, "What do you want me to see already? You told me to say Ikea nom, so show me what must be seen so I can eat," she yelled at the cavern as a whole. Nothing. Not even a grain of sand shifted. Defeated, she dropped her head and started crying her most frustrated tears. She hadn't bothered to wipe her face, but she haphazardly noticed that her tears weren't actually falling onto the cavern floor, but over her father, forming a literal picture just above where he lay. She thought she was seeing things, so she blinked a few times to make sure her eyes weren't playing tricks on her. No matter how many times she blinked, the pictures were there. Tons of them, all hanging in the air like long, flat strips of dew. They were pictures she had never seen before. Family pictures. There were pictures of her as a twin with black wings standing next to her sister who had gold wings. Pictures of her with Kuai Yin before she turned light being. Pictures of her with her golden father and all of his statuesque style former glory. There were so many different kinds of pictures of so many different kinds of things. It was hard for her to focus on any of them. Plus, the pictures began to move and shuffle as she let her eyes land on any one of the pictures. Plus, the pictures began to move and shuffle if she let her eyes land on any one for too long. It was like watching pieces of a puzzle shift on its own, but never fixing in one place long enough to form a cohesive structure. It was making her so dizzy. She had to shut her eyes just to breathe. She took several long, deep breaths. When she opened her eyes again after a few moments, the pictures were all coming together to form a sheer mound over her father's body. One at a time, the pictures shuffled, rose, and stuck itself to the mound and then disappeared like water. It got bigger with each picture added. There were so many pictures, Kai couldn't imagine how big the thing would be when they all added themselves. So she stood up and stepped back more than a few paces. She watched with one part wonder and one part horror as the pictures she barely got to see of a life she didn't remember shuffled, stuck, and then grew. She couldn't help but feel how unfair the process was. She still never got to see herself in him. It took her a few breaths of frustration, with her eyes closed, to discover that maybe she wasn't supposed to. Maybe whatever her past was and whoever she was then was irrelevant. Maybe whoever her father was then was irrelevant too. Maybe she wasn't supposed to see herself in him because there was nothing to see. The past was long gone, never to return again. Nostalgia for what will never be again would only serve to keep her from what her life was designed to be now. In all the time she had spent searching, she finally recognized the simplicity and power of letting it all go. She had found so many excuses for why she couldn't be anything at all that she wanted to be. Deep down, part of her excuse was because her father was the devil. Watching the pictures of her former life dissolve into the growing mound that had begun to form a full-out sphere made her feel like her excuses were pointless. She decidedly took a seat where she was to take in the moment exactly as it was playing out. It was almost like her past was dissolving with each picture. It was strangely cathartic, like throwing pictures in a fire. It was clever to her that because Lucifer had already burned for 7 years and some change, this process was forming a glistening bubble that slowly but surely began to form around him. The longer she watched, wishing popcorn was present to fully enjoy the experience, the better she felt, and the bigger the orb around Lucifer. After a really long while, the last picture lifted, added itself to the orb, and dissolved. The orb began to glow gold and pulse on its own, but not at all attached to the way her heart was beating. It had its own rhythm. It pulsed for a few beats like it had begun to breathe. Also, and she heard the faintest cough from inside it. She jumped up, astonished. "Oh," Kai said, not sure what to do. Should she hide behind the mountain again? The coughing continued. The coughs were weak and muffled at first, and then more powerful and loud. One particularly powerful cough caused Lucifer to sit straight up and his eyes to pop open. He no longer looked like an uncolored drawing. He looked nearly the way he did in his portrait. He was golden of hair and skin. Even his robes had filled in gold. But he was different. His hair was still somewhat stringy, and his skin was still a bit pale. His features had filled in some. His nose was more rounded, and his cheeks were far less severe. He looked around the orb confused. Kai could tell that he was unaware of how he got to be exactly where he was. She took a step back. She had nowhere to run without being seen, but she didn't want to be as close as she was. She thought that if she could step back while he was still catching his bearings, she might be able to be out of his sight line. But it was too late. He saw her. He smiled broadly at first. He looked so honestly happy to see her that he waved. Lucifer waved. She must have looked at him like his head had just rolled off his shoulders, because the entirety of his face dropped, and the little golden color he had acquired in his face was drawn all the way out. He looked precisely like he was looking at a ghost, and he was being haunted for his crimes. He didn't bother to stand. He looked defeated. He looked around the orb as though he had finally resigned himself to his prison. He looked at Kai again. She just stood there watching his process. He looked so sad. She almost moved toward the orb to talk to him, but she didn't. She just stood there watching him watch her. It was then that she noticed what was different. He looked old. Saya don't age the way humans do. They wear their years as wisdom. But Lucifer looked like he was wearing his years, or had just begun to, as Kai watched. This frightened her for some reason. While she didn't really want to engage him, she also didn't want him to wither away until she at least got to see the color of his eyes, or hear what his voice sounded like, or something. She wanted more time to look at him, even to be horrified and angry at him. But she could tell he was wasting. His recently rounded features were sucking themselves back in, Either the orb was killing him or he was killing himself. As much as she wanted to hate the Lucifer her father had become, she didn't want him to die either. "Stop!" she cried out, walking toward the orb. "Don't, just wait," she said. Lucifer looked startled, but his face plumped up some. "You don't have any excuses. I don't know what you remember about anything. How you got here, mostly. But maybe it's what you remember about how you got here that is making you want to give up. I'm not going to lie to you. You've done a lot of really shitty things to a lot of people. Make no mistake about it. But I figured out that you couldn't have done anything without willing participants. Just like the Derg, they use people's mental garbage against people who let them torture them with it. Some really horrible choices happened around you, but really, not only because of you. So, really, as much as it aches for me to say this, you can't take all the blame, even if people want to pin their particular brand of misery all on you. Plus, finally figuring out that my biological father is the actual devil gives one some sense of perspective. We all have to be able to balance our bullshit with our greatness. You just had a bit of a time with thinking your bullshit was your greatness. I need to say that sentence again. You just had a bit of a time with thinking your bullshit was your greatness. Which turns out makes things really fucked up for everybody around you, no matter what it looks like. I mean, I don't know you that well. I mean, now, as I am now. But if you're my father in blood, that means you can't be all bad. I mean, Mom is pretty great. But I believe there was a time when I was most like you. I turned out okay, which isn't exactly a consolation for everything you did. But even Mom says you're never too far gone to go home. Remember? You can go home, heal, start over. It'll be the rest of us here to clean up things, some, and help the people of Earth start afresh. That's part of my job. It's part of why I was born to the Earth plane to begin with. I've learned that everything has a purpose. Even our worst experiences happen to teach us something vital about ourselves. You served a great purpose here on Earth. You, in your own way, taught people something vital about themselves. It was kind of fucked up how bad it got, but still, you only helped people be what they wanted to believe about themselves. Their disconnection to everything. And maybe it takes feeling so disconnected from everything to fully appreciate the truth that everything is connected. After all is said and done, it could be said that you, Lucifer, are a master teacher. You weren't a nice teacher to have around, let's be clear, but you taught some great lessons. Maybe through time, you won't be remembered here as a monster, but maybe as an integral learning experience that the new Earth could not be what it's designed to be without the brilliant lessons we had to learn through you. I can't always see the future, but sometimes it's all about perspective. I don't know if I'm helping anything. I just wanted you to know that all hope isn't lost. If you want to go home, I can help you get there, Kai said. Her tears were hard to keep in her eye sockets, so she let them flow. Finally. It wasn't lost on Lucifer that she was crying for him, with him, because he too let the tears he hadn't cried for eons to flow down his cheeks. He nodded as he cried gently at first, but then his soft whimpers morphed into full-out wails that sounded painful. He cried and cried and cried for a very long time. Kai wanted so badly to run to the orb and break it down so she could comfort him, but something instinctive in her knew that this was a process he needed. The great Lucifer, whom some called the devil, was truly just a being from Tustai that lost his way. He was also in the process of unhurting. Kai recognized she was actually helping by letting him cry it out. It was then that Ikie Nom made sense. She had gotten to see what she needed to see. She nodded to the tavern in general. She nodded to the cavern in general. Basho di'in, she said, and it was done. Yes, like wet. That was like wet, like that deep, man. Yo, deep. So yeah, man. So so I'm just gonna go into chapter 34 because I want to talk through this at some point with you guys. Yeah. So chapter 34 is called The Four Fathers, and four is spelled Four, but it sounds like four fathers. Like, you know, get it? You got it. Most fathers don't see the war within the daughter, her struggles with conflicting images of the idealized and flawed father, her temptation both to retreat to daddy's lap and protection and to push out of his embrace to that of a beau and the world beyond home. Victoria Secunda said that. Kai didn't even realize she had fallen asleep, but when she woke up, the orb with Lucifer in it was gone. She jumped up in a panic. Oh shit, he's gone. Where'd he go? Fuck. I can't imagine this is a good thing. It's a brilliant thing, a voice from behind her said. Ah! Oh my god! Kai jumped, startled, but then briskly turned around to face the voice. Lucifer was there, was right there, no more than 3 paces away, which was way too close. She jumped back more. Holy shit, holy shit, holy shit. Hold on. Ah! You are okay. I have no intention of hurting you. You saved my life. If I am presuming correctly, this is not the first time, he said, with a warmth in his voice that made Kai especially uneasy. She was used to the cackly voice of the Lucifer in her yai. This Lucifer was too warm and fatherly. It made her stomach hurt. She needed to not want to like him. It was a lot like she was more comfortable with her fear, which she knew was stupid, but that didn't keep her from feeling that way. She didn't know what to say. And even if she did know what to say, she hadn't expected to have a conversation with him in this close of proximity. She was more than fine with him being in that orb. That was comfortable for her. Shit. How'd the orb pop? She hated that she fell asleep and missed how he got out. Maybe he willed himself out, which was stupid, if he was still a few parts bad Lucifer. What would be the point of orbs if people can get out of them whenever they wanted? My prison was not the orb. My prison was myself. The first orb of flames I created for myself, maybe, to burn myself back to sanity. In honesty, I cannot remember all that happened. I remember the flames, and then I remember you, he said. He smiled softly at her. You know who I am then? Kai asked, a bit too awkwardly for her taste. She barely caught that he read her thoughts. She was too weirded out by the experience to even acknowledge the possibility. Of course. I know your name is Kaiwan. I know this because I named you. You came out first. From the moment you were born, the moment I laid eyes on you, you were my daughter. Your sister, Kai, too, was always closer with your mother, but you were mine. I know it sounds strange to say, particularly about twins, but I cannot make it plainer than our connection was more powerful than anything I had ever known or experienced in my life at the time. You were my true daughter, Kai said flatly. Lucifer nodded. Yes, that could be said in truth. So why did you do all of this? If I was so important to you, how could you do everything you did to keep us apart? Lucifer shook his head. You said it initially, Kaiwan. I have no excuses. He said this with such generous sincerity that Kai couldn't help but stare at him with her mouth half open. Like this. He didn't look as old as he had in the orb. It was almost as though slowly, but diligently, he was being restored. Like he was being made new. A wrinkle would soften here, and a light in his skin would shine through there. He even looked like he was picking up some mass through his cosi, like his muscles were building up the more they spoke. Why are you changing? Kai asked. She was so confused. You told me you were here to bring me home. I'm being made ready. How do you know that? I can no longer claim to know anything at all. We all have our instincts, he said with a gentle smile. I don't trust you. I can't lie about that. Sometimes I can't tell what is future sight and what is you trying to break my life apart. Remember the dream where my husband morphed into you? You must have implanted that into my head somehow. She looked around at her surroundings and paused briefly. I don't know how you did, but you must have. You were very specific in creating an environment in which I would believe that the people around me aren't what they seem. So much for burning away the insanity. I can't figure out how you did that while balled up in all that fire. That was a I think that was a book 2 reference, just so that you know. Lucifer looked like he was searching for something, trying to remember, but then he stopped abruptly. But not like he found anything. It was more like he had resigned himself from a tedious process. I cannot blame you for feeling such things. A lot has changed. I cannot speak about many of the things I have done. I cannot say trust is something I deserve. But here you stand, not as a child as I remember, but as a woman. Dare I say, as glorious as her mother. He studied her up and down. And with child. Twins? He asked, tearing up again. I have missed so much, he said more weakly. Kai rubbed her belly, but she couldn't bring herself to touch him, not even on the shoulder, as he slumped in front of her. She was shuffling around in her brain, trying to find words of comfort, but she gave up because she couldn't find anything that didn't sound disingenuous or awkward. I have a daughter. Strangely enough, her name is Kai too. His face perked up, ever so slightly. Is that so? He said, with the tiniest hint of relief in his voice. Yeah, long story. I also have a son. He is called Picard. Picard? That is curious, is it not? That is not a name of Stai. It sounds of the people of Lath. Is his father of Sa? Kai sighed. No, his father is an elder from the Eden. Impossible! No elder of the Eden can produce a child. Kai just looked at him. Lucifer's face shifted. All of this is because of me, is it not? I'd like to make you take all the blame for my unusual life circumstances, but I wouldn't even know what to blame you for, honestly, besides the obvious. But yeah, according to what I've been told, a very intricate plan was crafted so you could go home, she said. And the people of Earth will be spared because the Endwine can be balanced, she added under her breath. Lucifer's head dropped only slightly. Then he relaxed into the fatherly line of questioning he had started. But his voice sounded a bit heavier. I see. So this elder, you share a Hayu with him? Kai smiled awkwardly. I don't. I share a Hayu with a Stai man named Jasperai. Jasperai? He asked as he searched his mind. Kai thought, for a family, he would remember with a child named Jasperai. I do not know of him, he said finally and resolutely. I didn't expect that you would, Kai said, practically holding her breath. It was no use. By the look on his face, Kai could tell that Lucifer was putting things together in his head. You share a Hayu with a Stai man named Jasperai, but you have a son with an elder of Eden who carries the name of Alath? Yes, Kai said, knowing where the conversation was going. I will presume the twins you carry now are of Stai, yes? Yes, she said, wishing she could slink and hide into her own skin. Is your Kaitu the fruit of the elder or Stai? He asked, matter of fact. Neither. She's half human, Kai said, wanting to die. I see, he said flatly. Your Kaitu is your firstborn, then? Yes. Your firstborn is a human male to anchor your Stai energy with her earth energy, which balances the twin energy the two of you share naturally. The boy, Picard, is the fruit of a spirit being, but he was born in Sa and raised to at least 5 years by the Lath in order to infuse him with light enough to replace the light that became missing from the Entwine's imbalance when my energy was diverted from the task. The twin souls you carry now are full Stai to bring full circle the twin energy from whence you came. But this path would make no sense energetically unless you were born on the earth plane through Kuai Yin as my fruit to engage the yin and yang energies in you specifically. She then allowed you to be raised by earthbound souls, one a slide and the other mute. They treated you poorly so you could feel compassion for the disconnected souls of earth, to know their pain in a personal way. This pain was compounded by a third earthbound soul, the third, who was physically abusive. Emotional and physical pain for the most transformative years of your life to solidify the energetic frequency necessary for the unfoldment of the rest. He said, like he was reading a chart that was just handed to him. The sequence of events was brilliantly crafted and orchestrated, he added, as though he was grading her term paper and hadn't just explained the ridiculousness of her life. Kai, for her part, had let her half-open mouth fall all the way open. She was expecting him to berate her for having 3 baby daddies, but instead, he fully grasped the magnitude of what she went through. Except, to him, all the things she went through were parts of a successful experiment in balancing a lot of funky energy he helped to make. Not the shit she went through to save his ass, as well as the planet. Which Hayu did you choose to bind your energies with, the Stai? He asked plainly. Yours, Kai said flatly. Lucifer looked mystified. Is that possible? I was sure I would have rotted to dust. How did you heal it? I don't know. I guess by crying. Brilliant! But that means you were no longer bound to Mom. Yes, he said more sadly than before. I have done terrible things, have I not? Yeah, I'm pretty sure terrible is being nice about it. Yes, he said, looking away. Kai sighed loudly. You make it all sound so matter-of-fact, like what I had to do, that it was easy. I cannot imagine that it would be easy. I am certain the pain you endured was unfathomable. I am humbled that you, all of you, I know so many Stai and others worked together for many lifetimes to master the unfoldment of such a plan. I was far gone. I did not even remember. Not even glimmers of myself. It could be argued that a life as disconnected as mine would not be worth saving. The scale of what you all did to save me, he said over fierce tears. I do not deserve it. This time, when Lucifer's head slumped forward, Kai stepped forward. It was her strongest instinct. Both of his massive hands were covering his eyes, but that didn't keep her from wrapping her arms around his waist and laying her head on his enormous chest. Lucifer startled. He hadn't been touched in forever, so he had forgotten what to do. He was stiff, with Kai so close to him, but for reasons she couldn't even begin to explain, she felt comfortable where she was. In the moment, neither of their pasts mattered. They both had been through a lot, and she could only suppose that the story had stopped being about what she had been through, or what he had done that caused her to have to go through all she had been through. The story was now in the moment. The details didn't even matter. She did what she had to do, even if she didn't know the significance of anything she was doing. The fact that Lucifer could run it all down like any of it made sense at all, and that put things into a kind of neat intellectual perspective, was intimately refreshing. There were no judgments, because seriously, who was he to judge? It was all gratitude. For all intents and purposes, the crazy experiences, the weirdness of her life was for a really good cause. They all saved someone no one thought could be saved. Their ridiculous plan worked. The story was no longer the struggle, but the outcome. The story was no longer the struggle, but the outcome. They did it, didn't they? Kai felt an extra sense of comfort because she had finally met a Stai person she could relate to. One that was far, 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 far from perfect. So she just hugged him. But not because she felt sorry for him, but because somewhere deep she finally profoundly saw herself in him. After a long while, he settled himself in a way that felt the most natural at the time. For the first time in a really long time, the Stai who lost his way and had ultimately become known as the actual devil lifted his ample arms from his sides and hugged his daughter. Wow. How's that for twists and turns and playing with your emotions? Me and the devil, Gil Scott-Heron. Is he reading her rights? 7 Degrees of Separation, Lucifer's grandchildren version. Right. Right. So I was conflicted with that chapter. I've always been conflicted with that chapter. Because it goes against what I believe. And remember, as an author, as a channel, is not your job necessarily to write your beliefs. It's your job to, write what comes out, right? And so I have always been conflicted. Well, I'm not going to say always, because it's been a year, but when that chapter kind of showed up, and I'm not going to say that I don't believe in blended families. I'm not going to say that, that the only way to be in a relationship is to be married. Like, I'm not one of those people at all. But I just felt like, even though everything was organic and honest, like, as the story progressed, for some reason, I was conflicted with how easy Lucifer was with it. Do you know what I'm saying? Like, he really did run that down. He really did, just like and you also have to understand that what I'm beginning to understand about the Stai as they find their way on the earth plane, they're very evolved beings, so they are the version. So I feel like Lucifer in his former life, when he first came to earth, was a scientist of some sort. Just like Lara's husband, Moreau, was a doctor. I don't know what kind of doctor he is. I'm sure Moreau and Kai have gotten close. So I'm sure, and there was a hint that Moreau and Kai have gotten close in the very beginning of this book, but I'm just leaving that there. You have to figure these puzzles out for yourself. But I have a feeling that Moreau is going to be more profound more involved in coming books. And so we'll get to figure out who he was. But you see that Kai's aunt, Lara, she's got 4 doctorate degrees. You know what I'm saying? Jasperi was a doctor of some sort. He was a healer. We'll just call him a healer of some sort. In two Stai. And his talent is healing subtle energies. So, like, he heals auras and that kind of stuff. So that we're just going to come to the understanding that the people of two Stai are, very educated and more than spiritually and emotionally evolved, or whatever the case is. They have wisdom and knowledge and universal knowledge. They are very in book 2 you found out that Jasperi and all the Stai children are extraordinarily well versed in universal law. So you know, it is not a stretch. And even in book one, it dabbled with some of this stuff, like the Akashic records and that kind of stuff. So it is not a stretch. It really is not a stretch to believe that Lucifer was some sort of a scientist or a doctor or something like that. And not for nothing, his personality might be very closely related. And it could, you know, remember book one was kind of a dream sequence. So there was Tanzin. There was a character that was an elder named Tanzin in book one. And Tanzin, I thought Tanzin was going to come back up again, but he didn't. And I feel like Tanzin might be close to, and Tanzin was very scholarly and very, you know, well versed and very stiff and very, you know, run it down. So it's not that far-fetched to believe that Lucifer as a person, like as a man, as a Stai man, is personality is closely matched to that of Tanzin. And that's kind of just a theory that I have. I don't know for sure, but I feel that way. But what are your thoughts? Like, what did you think about the chapter? Chapters. What did you think? Raj, I know you said that you liked chapter 33. I remember. You said that. Where can I get a copy of my books? On my website. If you want signed copies, you can get on my website. If you want, you can go. They're on Amazon and they're on Barnes and Noble too. But I told you that there are. Oh, you loved it? I told you that that the book 3 is being re-released, but it turns out Sean, you're such a buddy. Sean is crazy. I told you that book 3 is being re-released, and so it's going through the process right now of doing whatever it's doing. Okay, I'll make sure that I put big red lip marks on them. No problem. I don't wear a red lipstick, but that's fine. I can do it with nail polish. I'm just kidding. Oh boy. Anyway, I'm glad that you loved it, Raj. But you're not giving me, like, what do you think? Like, I want to hear your insights. I said what I thought. Like, that one chapter irked me a little bit, but it doesn't really irk me. I feel like it just stretched me. And I noticed that when I'm irked about something, when I'm irked about something, it's probably something I need to work through. And I feel like it stretched me. Like, I thought it was kind of refreshing. And that, you know, Kai said that too, that there was no judgment. And then the fact of the matter is, like, beyond, like, who is he to judge? Like, he really didn't even dawn on him. Like, he was like, he understood. And I think that's a cool place to be. To kind of just not look at people from your lens, but just to look at people as doing the best they can. You know what I'm saying? Y'all are so weird. Oh boy. Okay, so like, y'all, questions, yo. Did you shed tears for Satan, Steve Mason? Did that happen? I have to go up. Yeah. And see, that was a natural progression too, because in book 1, he's nothing like he is now. And I'm actually excited to go back to read book 1 so that you guys can kind of see the evolution. And then it's like we can go back to book 1 and then book 2, and then you can, you know, in your own time go back to book 3 and go and put all the pieces to the puzzle together. And oh, it's about, wait, hold on. I'm gonna read that in a second. Hold on. So, and I think I told you yesterday that I feel like this story is an experiment on our point of view. And I'm not sure how much of it, like, I don't remember when I first started writing the story if I was extraordinarily intentional. I just remember going, okay, I'm going to write this. Like, I remember writing pages in my journal, and it's only a few of them, and then just kind of, you know, following this path. And I remember having a conversation. So maybe it was a conversation, not necessarily my intention, but I think, you know, after some things were written, I remember having the conversation, like, trying to explain things like, misogyny and patriarchy and, God, our concepts of God and the devil, and, like, themes in the Bible. You know, there are all kinds of themes, like themes, and they're not just themes from the Bible, but themes from all kinds of world religion. So I kind of viewed it as an experiment. And so I'm watching this experiment unfold, and it's a natural progression. Like, it's kind of this whisper down the lane. If you think about how a lot of our world religions come to be, there's always a legend about a person. And then after whisper down the lane, 2,000 years later, this person has flown and fished from the moon and, you know, done all kinds of stuff. And I'm not saying that they didn't do all of those things, but they're always way more elaborate after 2,000 years, right? And so I thought that maybe, you know, legend, if this was really the story, if, you know, these people were missionaries and they came down, what would happen if one person, who happened to be the woman, was the lead for this particular mission, and then the other person, which was the man, happened to be infected with an anger gene that was prevalent on the planet they were supposed to be helping, went batshit crazy, and then it was kind of like, now you have your opposites. Now you have your, you know, your basis for how shit can get fucked up. If you forget your wife and think that she's your nemesis, you're going to do all kinds of stuff. Hate women. You know what I'm saying? Everything about women. You're going to, you know, try to do everything she's doing, but opposite. You know what I'm saying? 'Cause petty. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's what it looks like. And so it was just and then what happens when you get a chance to heal? Like, then what happens when you have to face yourself, however that means? He burned for 7 years, but, you know, what does that look like? I don't know. It could be any number of things, like suffering for 7 years, having to figure it out, having to face yourself, being in jail for something, whatever, you know, whatever retribution looks like for 7 years, where you have to atone and deal with yourself. And that's it. And then what does that look like once, you know, you're healed? You forget some things, you remember some things, you have guilt, you have, you know, and you atone, you have to face your past, you have to forgive yourself. You know, I'm trying to relate it to us as people, but I think that was the natural progression of the story. If he was this mythical creature that was really just a person, then you have to see the person underneath the mythical creature. Do you get what I mean? Am I being extra? Probably. I'm always extra. That's right. So about 10 years ago, I met my biological father, and I had so many questions and felt such hostility about him not being around all my life. But when I met him, a lot of that just seemed to disappear, and I felt like I met the other side of me that I didn't know. Yeah. So it made it easier for me to relate to his particular problem. Yep. That's right. So, like, How was Louis Cipher? Ha ha ha! That was from Angel Heart. Actually, warm or soft. That's deep. Like Ross said, like a human being. When did Satan ever have feelings per se? Yeah, but but that was the point, Bernard. It was like, if he's a person, he's a person. And think about this. Think about this. And this might not be a good example, but we're gonna go with it because it's there. How many times have you heard stories about serial killers where people go, I had no idea he was a serial killer. He was so nice and kind. Now, granted, you know, crazy look all kind of ways. But I guess that's the point. We all start out as people. And then there are lots of paths we take. And, you know, some people, the path happens to be a mental illness that they can't help. And so it's a spiral that just continues. For some people, it's anger or grief or fear. You know, like we look at the world and some of the atrocities that people are able to commit in the name of their religion, in the name of their fear, in the name of their whatever and whatever and whatever. You look at just civil rights in this country, like people justify lots of stuff. And we, the people on the receiving end of the fuckery, we can say you're a monster, but the people who are next to those people, who know those people, grew up with those people, around those people, have the same ideologies as those people, they don't see monster. They see a person. And so it really is about perspective. And I think I'm glad that the story is playing out this way, because it really makes us look at ourselves and how we view monsters, how we view people who've committed crimes, how we view people who work outside of social mores, how we view people who, you know, live their lives and their happiest selves, you know, being fuckery. And, you know, for the most part, they may or may not hurt somebody. But it's like, I think part of the separation is putting ourselves above other people, because we wouldn't do that. But if you think of all the great spiritual mystics and adepts and ascended masters and all of that stuff, you think of all of them, they hung out with lepers and prostitutes, and I'm talking about all of them. They didn't have the rules that we have. We set up the barriers that in order for you to be okay, you have to be pristine. In order for you to be valuable, you have to be pristine. And I think what the story between Kai and Lucifer, and please don't think, you know, I'm not even giving it away, but you know, we are layered, nuanced beings, all of us in existence. And so we're not all evil and we're not all good. And I think that's why Kai in the story exists. She's the exact middle of her parents. Well, I'm glad I made perfect sense, Raj. That's good. Sometimes he's so silly. Polite and batshit crazy mixes very well. Right, exactly. That's right. So I have like, I just want that chapter, every time that chapter comes up, I need to work through it. And I don't know why. I don't know what's in there that I need to work through, but there's something there. So I'm going to have to work through it. But I have to get this. I have a, never mind. You know when you're about to overshare? That was about to happen. Okay, guys, so if you don't have any more questions, tomorrow we're going to be reading chapter 33. No, we just did that. Tomorrow we're going to be reading chapter 35. And that's called Choices. And I think we're going to be reading 35 and 36. So 36 is like 2 chapters. Yeah. So probably 35 and 36. And we're almost done. Later? Are you leaving? Where is the princess? She is watching TV. I asked her if she wanted to join. She didn't want to join. Work through. It's really truth to work through. That way you even have to work through. I guess. Yes. Okay, so tomorrow we're reading 35 and 36. Don't forget, those of you who might be new, we meditate at 11:11 a.m. every morning throughout the month of August. I don't know if we're going to keep doing it after August. So it's like a job. So join in, stop, drop, and meditate 11:11 a.m. The p.m., you know, we're doing this Star People Story Time. And this definitely we're going to keep up, but we have to work through the times. Although, I'll ask you this, is 11:11 p.m. a good time for everybody? Because I'm thinking of September now for book 1. So, do you want to do it earlier? Do you want to do it later? Just let me know. You can just, you know, leave a message and just say, you know, keep it at 11:11 or do it at 10:10 or whatever. Why is it 11:11? Because 11:11 is a, if you look up 11:11 angel numbers, Kaisha, if you look up 11:11 angel numbers, it'll give you the whole rundown, but it's kind of like a, oh, hey girl, welcome for just joining. But 11:11 is kind of like a signifier. It's a wake up. So just Google 11:11 angel numbers, and then you'll find all the info that you need. And if you're just joining, Kaisha, you can go to the Stellar Trilogy series, the Facebook page, and all the other videos are there, so you can catch up. And there you go. So you guys decide if you want to continue. Like in this camera, my hair looks really. Look at that. I look like I have bat wings. Well, I got my wings. They're right here. I'm so discombobulated, yo. But I'm almost done. Lord. Whatever I was gonna say. You just know what I was gonna say. I'm getting off because I'm losing my mind. I have work to do, but I love you madly. Okay, you get your order the damn books. What you want me to do, Shawnee? What you want me to do, Shawnee? Do you want me to twinkle, twinkle, twink? And then they just end up there and they're signed? Aw, thank you, Kaisha. I appreciate it. Chapter 35, yes, tomorrow. Whatever I was saying, but... Y'all are too much. Alright, I got work to do because I got deadlines. So I'm going to work for a couple more hours and then I'm going to be done and I'm going to be very excited about being done. Okay, so that's what I'm doing. I love you guys so much. Thank you so much. We're almost done. We have less than 10 chapters left. Can you believe it? So, that's what I want you guys to tell me. Come up, tell me if you want to keep the time at 11:11 or something different. So that's your homework. And I'll see you guys tomorrow at 11:11. Leviathan High Star people, I see you mañana. Yes, yay, bye. Okay, we'll keep it.